All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of I Can Do This All Day. I'm Dan, the Part-Time Avenger, and with me is Mark, the Resident Jedi.
Hello there. Today we're taking a much-deserved and welcome jaunt into a galaxy far, far away, a long, long time ago, with the newest Disney Plus Star Wars offering, that is Skeleton Crew.
The Skeleton Crew. So that means there's going to be some pirates.
Arr.
Have they referred to pirates in Star Wars? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Hondo, like, did they refer to him as a pirate?
Yeah.
Okay. I just don't remember it. That's all. It's been a while since I've watched the old school.
There's never been a full run cinematically of anything piratey. They use smuggler and pirate.
Smuggler, that's what it was. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, well, fair enough. Well, it's kind of good to be back with Star Wars. The last Star Wars property that we reviewed was The Acolyte, and we had some good things to say about it, and we also had some bad things to say about it. But why are we reviewing this? And walk us through why we wanted to do this one.
I mean, we're reviewing this because it's a Star Wars property, and we are a nerd-filled gem of a fucking podcast.
Some would say the authority on nerd-filled gems.
Many would not. But yeah, no, I mean, this just fit right in our zeitgeist. And if it wasn't tight enough that it's a Star Wars property, it was created by Ford and Watts, the drivers behind Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool. I didn't realize that was the case. So when I saw John Watts was involved, I was like, this makes sense. So I have a good feeling, and I'll talk about this as my prediction going into it, is okay, if John Watts is involved, he does the whole teenager kid thing very, very well. I thought he nailed it with the Spider-Man trilogy with Tom Holland. Your thoughts on that? Did you think he had that same type of dynamic, or was it more of just oh, John Watts, Spider-Man, I like that guy?
I mean, I didn't dig deep into the teenage thing. I had heard through the internet that this was more of a, kids-based show. So I was honestly excited to be able to try and get my son to watch it with me, who's just about 4. So I was like, okay, maybe he'll sit through this. There's kid characters he can identify with. It'll be great. So I was stoked, man. The first scene in this, the thing that kicks this off, is just a huge murder fest. To which my wife's like, well, you should probably turn this off. I don't know that this is kid appropriate. And it frustrated me because 80% of it very kid relevant. But then it got extra murdery.
I like my kids' movies with a little bit of a sprinkle of murder in it, so I'm okay with it.
You have trauma. It's okay.
It's not trauma.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Don't fuck with me, man.
It's not your fault. I was just trying to explain to a 3-year-old why all these people are getting shot at is not there's 80s movies that are not kid appropriate, like the Goonies, or that kind of skate that line, and then there's full on frontal blaster destruction.
I was gonna say full frontal nudity. What fucking kids movies are you watching?
We're not watching Forgetting Sarah Marshall. No,
your favorite scene though.
In this? No,
Forgetting Sarah Marshall. That's what she has on the full frontal nudity. That's where we're going. Kid-centric television show that we're watching. If you notice, I think our most F-bomb ridden of episodes was the Buzz Lightyear movie with Evans. So yeah, let's keep that going. Anytime we review a kid's property, we're just going to get super dirty, super vulgar.
Is this you just trying to get another Fleshlight endorsement?
Hey, you know what? Never thought about that until just now. So the Fleshlight, if you're out there, we're married men. And what better endorsement than married men for the Fleshlight?
Yeah. And Fleshlight and full frontal nudity aside, I thought that this property would be more kid-friendly and less murdery. So I was stoked about it, but I mean, you knew we were going to watch it because it's Star Wars. A majority of the things that Disney has put out from a Star Wars perspective have lived up to or met expectations and been pretty solid. They're definitely not the DC of Star Wars. I would wager to say that any of the Star Wars properties that they released, even the Book of Boba Fett, is better than the last 4 Marvel movies.
Nah,
Mm.
Agree to disagree on that one. So you're telling me that the Acolyte is better than what was one of the last four Marvel movies? I can't remember. Guardians of the
Exactly.
Galaxy.
You
Guardians of
can't
the Galaxy.
even
You're telling
name
me
them.
it's been a while since they've released them. So Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is worse than the Acolyte.
That wasn't one of the last four Marvel
It
movies.
absolutely was. It's been a couple of years, but yeah, absolutely. But either way, as you were kind of consuming this, did you binge watch it? Did you watch it week to week? I was a little bit late to the party, so I did a little bit of binging on an airplane on my little Samsung Galaxy, whatever phone that I have. But yeah, I was perfectly fine with it. I had my headphones on, totally immersed in it. No one was bothering me on my flight, so that's how I consumed it. What about you?
No, I watched it at home. I did binge though. 2 nights, 4 episodes each. Watched it on the big TV with the sound because it's Star Wars and I wanted that. Sadly, not as much lightsaber fighting and destruction and pew pews as you want. But
I mean, there was lightsaber
there
though, so that
was
was
a
kind of cool.
lightsaber.
I was
And there was,
surprised by that.
were you?
Yeah, I mean, with kids, like I didn't think they were gonna pull out a lightsaber. I thought they were gonna try to distance themselves from the whole Jedi lore thing until, yeah, the first
No, I thought
episode. You kind of see that.
this was interesting because it was its own encapsulated story, which like good on them for doing. Not everything needs to be hugely episodic and just keep going. This series wrapped itself up essentially, right? Like there wasn't a need, like there's no need for a Skeleton Crew 2. Like
Okay.
no, I don't can't see it. But if they want to, they want to. But they set it in a time that everybody understands, in the time of the New Republic. But they had a lost world in there. This to me was a few different '80s movies put together. It was very Goonies
Of
because
course.
pirates and we're looking for fucking One-Eyed Willie's treasure. There was a pirate captain and a little sword and the whole deal. It was a little bit Pirates of the Caribbean because Black Jack Sparrow and Jude Law. It was not bad. And then a little bit of Stand by Me because all the kids came together eventually after they got to see some bodies made.
Okay.
But
How do you think this fits into like the whole Star Wars universe though? So you said that it's like a story within itself, and you said that it kind of wrapped it up at the end of it, which I disagree. But do you think that they're gonna try and tie stuff in because they try to do a little bit of nods here and there, but not a Skywalker was mentioned, not a Darth Vader, Jedi was mentioned quite a bit, but yeah, what do you think?
I mean, in the time of the Old Republic or the Republic, Jedi were everywhere. So I mean, it's a known quantity in the timeline that this world was hidden away.
And can you clarify on that timeline? Because I'm still kind of confused and I didn't feel like Googling it. Is this in between? Like,
Post Return of the Jedi, pre Force Awakens.
okay. All right. I don't need to know when it happens. I was just kind of
Mm-hmm.
curious as to, so like as I'm watching this, I'm not like, so wait, did Luke Skywalker like fuck the fuck their empire up
Yeah.
yet or what? Like I was totally just all right, blinders are on. This is a new story, a new original story, and I'm just gonna kind of soak it all in and just see where it goes. I didn't have any expectations of Jedi at all. Surprised when I saw a lightsaber. I just thought it was gonna be a kid's adventure, or at least I thought it was gonna be like a young adult adventure. I didn't think the kids were going to be that young. So
Yeah.
I was a little bit concerned right off the bat because like, ooh, these are some young kids. And you and I have had multiple conversations about child actors. So yeah, it was a little bit concerning for me right off the bat. I was like, okay, is this really going to revolve around them, or is it going to revolve around Jude Law and he's kind of like this cool Jedi guy that they're a ragtag bunch of kids. He saves them or something like that. So that's kind of what I was thinking going into it.
I mean, the plot is simple, right? Disgraced captain uh, tries to regain control of his ship, his crew, and his booty, if you will, right? It is 100% Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. It is the plot. They even do he's in the jail cell and gets out with instead of using leverage, he just forces up the key.
I want to talk about that because as that happened, Were you like, what the fuck? Who the hell is this guy? Like, were you surprised? And did you think that was he a Jedi? Was he a Sith? Was he something else?
So I had I had a feeling that he was the masked dude from the opening scene. Like I just kind of put that together with the Force thing. It was, is he really using the Force, or is there something else? Is there like a trickeration to it? You know?
Did you really thought that it was a trick? Like the fact that he was able to get keys and like he could have gotten those keys anytime if it was a trick. I don't think for the past year have I ever been so like, ooh, what is this? Like I'm super curious. Like even in the Acolyte, I was curious, but not like I was more like scrunching my head, like, okay, what the fuck is this? What's going on? I was excited when I saw him uh allegedly use the Force. It wasn't confirmed until a little bit later on that he was a Force user, but
mhm.
dude, I was in. I was like, dude, I think he is a kid that survived Order 66. And so that's why I wasn't sure of where it was in the timeline. Like in my head, I wanted to believe that. Like this is what happens when you witness your fellow classmates get murdered by by one of the teachers. And so that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, no, they did that story in the video games.
Oh, did they really?
With Jedi Fallen Order. I know,
Oh,
awesome game.
okay.
And then Jedi
Bummer.
Survivor. Definitely, the Cal Kestis games are worth it from a story perspective. Definitely tight. But I hear you, and it's cool to see force sensitive folks that have survived Order 66 in that way, and survived for what would be a considerable amount of time, right? Like from Order 66 through the rise of the Empire is, like 15 years or more, right? For
I don't know.
Luke to go from a baby to, like a young adult, 15 to 20 years.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So I was just kind of very surprised by that, and I was like, I was in. Like when I saw that happen, I was like, ooh. Uh, I didn't know where else that the kids could fit into this. I was just thinking like, oh, this Jedi or fallen Jedi or whatever it is, he's just gonna be like a good guy overall, and they're gonna go on adventure after adventure, and he's gonna get them out of shit, and vice versa. But when you heard about Atten and you're watching the show, is like what type of utopia society is this, and where did it all fit in? Is there anything in your experience of what you've read or played in video games that there was any type of acknowledgement to at Atten?
Not specifically, but I didn't read every book, right? There's a bunch of legends out there, legends books and novels that have, references to all kinds of things. There's definitely been, hidden planets and stuff like that in the past. This specific planet and technology I can't recall from my youth and all the readings, but it didn't seem outside of the realm of possibility. And I do think it's really interesting that it was a mint planet and they went to, I really think it's funny that galactic currency is hard currency versus just electronic currency.
Well, it was a long time ago, so
Uh,
maybe they didn't have their Venmo set up back then.
they have Navicomputers, just no Venmo.
Yeah, yeah. No Dogecoin back in the day for
Oh,
that.
that'd be Ewok coin, wouldn't it? Or
Yeah,
Wookie
yeah.
bucks.
Calamari coin.
Oh man.
It's a good one today, guys. We're just gonna go all over the place. But yeah, so with what about for Jod? So when you saw him do the Force, you're kind of talking a little bit about it. You thought right off the bat you thought it was a trick?
I mean, I knew it was. I wanted it to be the Force, right? But I was just kind of taking it in because
Okay.
it was a character that they obviously were being a little mysterious with, right? If he is just in a cell in this, pirate place for this long, I mean, they're gonna do something with. I mean, you knew Jude Law was gonna be a main character, so it
And
wasn't like
his
it
face is
wasn't
on the
like
fucking
yeah, they weren't gonna do a Carrie Ann Moss with this. So you knew he was gonna be a main character, so you just kind of let her go. And he used the Force a little bit, and they went back and forth, and it's cool. And you would assume that there are, like minor Force sensitives out there in the world or in the galaxy. The Jedi weren't recruiting, so there could have been those that survived the Inquisitors and been out there. You just don't know. But there's a lot of stories about that, right? About either hidden Jedi having kids or Jedi's taking on Padawans. I like the idea of it. It's good to see because the order was destroyed, the balance of the force swayed so much that even those that were force sensitive were not always the good guys. They moved to the gray area a lot, or to piracy. Arr.
Are you part of the faction of people that is like the Lucas purist, to where it's like everything regarding the Force is balanced? So there has to be an equal amount of evil, equal amount of good guys. Are you, do you subscribe to that, or are you just kind of like, no, it kind of pops up as it does?
As much as I respect Freddie Prinze Jr.'s ravenous opinions,
Yeah.
I tend to just like take it as entertainment, and as long as it sticks to kind of a zeitgeisty feel, as long as it doesn't feel like forced, and as long as it doesn't feel like the Eternals, I'm happy with it, right? I'll take it. As long as it doesn't go completely off the deep end. Some of the best Star Wars out there is Star Wars that isn't Lucas driven, right? The Clone Wars stuff, Rebels, that whole story that drives Ahsoka to the front of the line, The Mandalorian, Rogue One. Those really deep stories I really enjoy, and they don't tick one box for each thing. I'm not here to keep a striking ball count. I'm here to just watch a show and enjoy it. Or not enjoy it. We don't know.
Well, speaking of the show, I think at the heart of the show is, and the whole storyline and the appeal of this, or at least what the intended appeal of this was, is the kids in the show. So the child characters, are they truly just the charm of the show, or are they just a bunch of brats? What do you think?
It's very Goonies to me, right? It's so Goonies. It's
Did you
Goonies Star Wars.
Are you buying into their adventure, and like Neil and, oh my gosh, what's the other kid's name? I can't remember. You'd
Which
think
one?
that everyone,
AB and Fern and Wim?
Wim. Sorry. I wanted to say Worm, but yeah, his name is Wim. So Wim is just like, he is gung ho about going on an adventure. He knows about the Jedi. Are you buying into their adventures as kids and wanting to check out this spaceship that was uncovered in
Oh yeah, I
their little
am. Because
forest?
I've seen the Goonies.
I don't know. There's parts of it where I think Neil is kind of like Mikey, because he's such an innocent. But
He's
yeah,
chunk.
he's
He's
not.
so chunk.
I don't know
He's
about that.
chunk.
Maybe not.
He does the truffle shuffle. He makes friends with the big,
Okay.
like he's chunk.
Yeah, I could see
He's
that. I
chunk.
could see that. But I think Chunk is a punchline, where I don't think Neil is a punchline in the story. I think he's just like a cute little blue trunked bastard. It's just like just a cute little kid that just happens to go along
Blue
with his best
Trump
friend.
basher.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
coin that phrase. Hashtag that shit
oh, jeez.
on social media.
Maybe Blue Chew will sponsor us then.
Oh, how about some Blue Chew? We're going hard for sponsors in 2025.
Oh, that was a pun. That was a pun.
Uh,
I
what?
think
So
that
do you? Oh, go ahead.
no, I think that all the Goonies are represented, right? KD is or KB is very obviously Data, so that actress is going to win an Oscar in about 40 years. You know,
Yeah.
and then you've got the girl that's half Brand and half Steph, because she's tough and the captain, but also got that girl problem. I with why
Whim.
can't yeah is half Mikey half mouth. I
Okay.
think he's got some
Yeah.
mouth
Fair
to
enough.
him. But I mean, they even get a sloth. Smee SM33.
I would. I think that's just a K2SO for kids. I think that's really what it
Did
was.
you did
And
you get the Smee reference
nah, no,
when they named it SM33 Smee, which was
I
Captain Hook's first mate?
no, didn't
Oh,
didn't get it.
yeah.
You want to know why?
Why?
Because
Because you
Mark,
suck.
I don't know if you knew, but when I was a kid, I didn't watch that shit. So, but
You've
no,
never
yeah,
seen Hook with
I
Dustin
was,
Hoffman and Bob
I did,
Hoskins and Robin Williams?
I did,
Bob
and
Hoskins was Smee.
that was good. That was good. But I was thinking like Smee was isn't that like Luke's aunt's name?
Smee was
Shmi
Anakin's Anakin's mom.
That's what it was. Okay. So yeah, I didn't make any connection with that either. But when you said Smee, I was like, you mean one of
Shmi? No,
the
not
female?
Shmi.
Yeah. Okay. Well, going back to the kids. So do you have a favorite kid out of all of them?
No, I just liked them. It was annoying.
Really?
It was annoying. It just was annoying a little bit. I didn't have like a champion kid that I was like, that's my, it just wasn't, there wasn't the one for me.
Okay. Interesting.
Did you
All
have a
right.
favorite kid? Did you like the blue horn bands?
I did. I did. I thought Neil was freaking adorable as a kid. Like, I would love to have a little kid like him playing with my boys, just like, just because it's like, he's such a good-hearted person and he's a good friend, like I think we all aspire to be as good of a friend as Neil, because he's just like, I'll go along and I'll go on your adventure. Yeah, I might not be able
Fine.
to do some of the shit, but like, hey, let's go ahead and do this. And let's be honest too, for Star Wars, you need to have like a cute alien in there somewhere. Either a cute droid or a cute alien, because you need to get some of that merch. Dude, I would love to have like a little Neil plush doll. That would be freaking sweet. I don't think it's going to happen, but I guess it depends on if what type of viewership or post release run that this has. But yeah, I thought he was really cool, but I was also partial to Cyclops, KB, just because I like a little bit of, she was almost like a little kid Lobot, and
A
I
little
thought she was
kid
gonna like
Lobot.
fuck some people up. I thought she was gonna like go into to whatever implant mode where she like starts shooting freaking laser beams out of her eyes. Like I thought that would have been cool, but
Lobot
uh,
didn't shoot laser beams.
no, I know, but I'm just saying, like, she had a freaking visor like Geordi or Cyclops, so like, why not be able to have like some type of cool power? That's what you do in Star Wars. Like, you don't get like an implant unless it does something. So that's why I thought she should have had something.
Unless unless you're Lando's bitch, right? That's
Well, he did have a lot of. I still think to this day that Lando was just he. Lobot was like the gimp for Lando. He's just like, Lobot, come over here. I need
he's
to be
just he's
satisfied
just
carnally.
flicking his fingers on Lobot's bald head.
Yeah, just a insatiable person that Lando was. He's like, I do not discriminate. Lobot, come here. It's a slow night on this Saturday.
Hey,
You and
it's
me are gonna have a good time.
oh man. Yeah, no, I mean I didn't grab there. FYI, there is a Funko Pop and a Lego minifigure out there for you, for your
For
boy.
Neil,
Yeah.
that's cool.
No
Good.
plushies yet.
But yeah, I thought that creature, that alien race, was just cool. Like his parents and everything. I was like, oh, dude, like I would just watch an entire show just to that. Like
Well, they
I was.
definitely pulled a ton of aliens out of the cantina.
Oh, for sure.
And I dug that. That was all good for me. Like more of that. That was the tie-in that I enjoyed the most. Not necessarily that there was, anything special, but I just liked that they dug into all of the different species.
I was listening to a radio station where they're playing some trivia. Do you know the name of the cantina?
There's a name.
Yeah, I always just thought it was like the Moss Eisley Cantina, but apparently there is like another name, like
Oh,
Kalman's Cantina or something like that. So it's I guess the owner's name is
oh.
Kalman. So I don't know. I never knew that. After seeing that movie, at least, at least in the triple digits of like 100 to 200 times range, I would have thought that that would have been the case, but like no, I always just referred to it as Moss Eisley Cantina. So, fun fact for all those trivia nerds out there, looks like that is the truth. But
Huh.
anyways, going back to what you were saying, is your mind blown? Because mine was when I learned
Yeah, no,
that.
I'm trying to figure out where it was named.
Yeah, I don't know. It was probably like in a book or something, I bet. And it's like, yeah, they never named it, and then all of a sudden in a book that they just, of course, had to have a cantina scene in a book or something like that. But um, so least favorite kid. So you just disliked all of them equally? Like there wasn't one that kind of irked your nerves more than the others?
The girl was the one I could have done without. The
Fern,
older, yeah. Fern was just kind of a bitch.
like a bitch, like a mean person,
Yeah.
right? Like
I don't need
okay,
mean girls in my space.
fair enough. Fair
Stop
enough.
being a bully. She's a bully.
She did have some redeeming qualities, though, like to where she admitted when she was wrong on something. It took like 3/4 of a season, but yeah, she got there. So she did have an arc. And you love a hero's journey and an arc for a
She wasn't
character.
a
So
hero. She was no,
no,
no.
not at all. No, the kids weren't heroes. Is
I
working as a
mean,
team
they
to
had their journey. I just was not a fan of that
okay,
character. Not a
fair
fan of
enough.
bullies.
Yeah,
Bullies are supposed to be the bad guys.
she was my least favorite because I hate, and whether it's a boy or a girl, I just hate a little bossy kid. Like that's the worst. And she was very smart and very conniving. She was almost like the way that I picture Han Solo as a kid. You know, that's kind of what I think of her as. Do they feel like authentic Star Wars characters, though? Or did you feel like, oh well, here's just checking a box for Disney, like we got to market to kids, so here's the kids show.
You know, it spurs a different question: is what is an authentic Star Wars character? Don't think that there's a mold per se. I think that especially when you move outside of a certain lineage, if they're not a Skywalker, what is there that discerns a Star Wars character from any other action movie character? They exist in the time and universe that they occur in. They have what I would say are legitimate, relatable problems, but I think that a majority of the Star Wars characters, when we were first introduced to them, did too, right? Luke was relatable because he was that kid that wanted to get out of the house and go explore the world. So that makes them accurate from a Star Wars perspective. I don't prescribe to a specific form function for Star Wars characters. I enjoy the fact that there's depth because there was a lot of, conversation about angst and evolution and, just real world problems, not hoity-toity entitled, you know, crazy problem.
Okay,
Which
fair
is, I
enough.
think, what makes Star Wars so much more relatable than some of the other sci-fi properties.
I think for the kids, for me, I just enjoyed a fresh take on characters in the universe. We saw a little bit of some of the kids in what's it called? Obi-Wan, like little Leia and of course little Luke. But yeah, we haven't really seen any other kids in the show besides back in the day for the Acolyte with I can't even remember their names. The is Osha and her sister,
Yeah.
and that wasn't like the typical, like they were basically in a witch coven, and so that's not relatable. At least for me, I didn't. I wasn't Wiccan when I was growing up, so
Oh man. Your
um,
wife is disappointed.
with the kids overall, I was just like, okay, cool. John Watts is bringing some youth realism to this universe, which you're absolutely right. It's relatable. So I was like, okay, I like a good kids adventure in an adult world. I don't like kids adventures and kids stories. I like them in the adult world. So this is kind of what I got as I'm going through on everything. In terms of like Star Wars stereotypes, I would say like Star Wars stereotypes is like they always have a stick up their ass. They really do. I think like most of the characters will have some type of stick up their ass, whether it's a good one, the light side of the force, the dark side of the force, or the governmental dictatorship or things like that. It's I never saw, at least in the original trilogy, I never saw someone that was like super cool. Like yeah, Wedge is cool, Luke and Han is cool, but like there's an edge of assholeness to Han Solo. For these kids, there's an innocence there to where it's like, oh yeah, they are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and it's just like for me stepping into the Star Wars world, it would be like, yeah, this is the same stuff that I would be curious about. I would want to go on an adventure. I would want to hang out with a Jedi. Like this is that curiosity that piques in me because we've seen so much of the Skywalker saga, right? And
Uh-huh.
a little bit more than that with some spin-offs of other characters. But I'm starting to get a little bit more refreshed on Star Wars because I'm seeing something different. Now, while some of the purists might think that that's blasphemy, it's not the original vision, like, hey, that's fine because the new vision, there's parts of the new vision that sucked, there's parts of the old vision that sucked. So I'm all right with everything.
No, I like that. I love the thought out nature there. I just want to see more stories that fit in the universe. That's it. Like Star Wars is so much less pressure than Marvel or DC because you're working with characters that have to be larger than life and have to have these extraordinary abilities. But the beauty of Star Wars is there are so many angles with which you can approach the universe that making a quality story doesn't always have to include Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader. It can include anybody. That's why some of the newer stuff has worked. That's why Andor has worked. No Jedi and that shit. Solely a political drama based on that. That's why, to me, the Acolyte worked because you don't know what and who was trained when and how. You know that the Sith have been underhanded, and there was a merciless anger that was driving that person. I dug it, and that's why I also like the Mandalorian because it's in the world, it exists, and it follows the rules, if you will, which are just operate in the world. So I don't know. I feel like the continued Star Wars shows, though they're controversial, hit closer to the mark for me than some of the new Marvel stuff because they're not telling stories that have already been told differently. They're creating a story.
As a Marvel fan, I don't take that, I'm not butthurt about that statement at all because it's true. I mean, there are heroes and for Star Wars, like not everyone has to be a hero. They could just be a normal person or that version of normal in that universe. So yeah, I can dig that. But like when it comes to heroes or even, in quotes, bad guys, Jude Law, face on the little icon of the show and everything. And are you a Jude Law fan, or what's your origin with him?
I mean, I don't think there's a ton of Jude Law movies that are in my top 10. Jude Law not on my Mount Rushmore of British actors or
Hmm.
anything like that. I'm not like Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow did not change my life.
I totally forgot about that movie.
He was not the talented Mr. Ripley for me. But I mean,
Oh
he's
no,
been
because he
in
was Dickie Greenleaf. That's why.
yeah, yeah. He's been in some good stuff and there's things in the zeitgeist I've enjoyed, but I feel like he's starting to get typecast a little bit. Like, tell me this character didn't feel very similar Yanrog in Captain Marvel. Oh, I'm training you. Nope, double cross. Gotcha, bitch. It felt very much that way. But yeah, I mean, Jude Law is good, but not like, I don't think he's done anything. And I'm looking at his IMDb right now just to make sure I'm not missing anything that's just on my straight up list. So no, nothing crazy, but he's been in good stuff. What
I
about
think he's
you?
really
Are you a
he's
closet Jude Law fanatic?
he's not an I can do this all day actor for me, and he's not a he can do no wrong actor, but I enjoy him in his performances. I think he's very entertaining. The reasoning why I feel that way is because he can play both sides. He can play maniacal. He can play the good guy, but he always does it with kind of like that. If he is a good guy, he always has some type of snicker or slyness to him to where it's like, I don't know if he's 100% good. So I just like his delivery of how he played this character. And I think there was an interview with him about Captain Marvel where he was kind of disappointed because he wanted to do a whole lot more with that character. So I don't know if that's necessarily just him being typecast into this particular role. Maybe they just, John Watts just saw him. Maybe John Watts is just an uber fan of Jude Law, but I think he knows what he can do well, and I think casting directors and directors see that. So it's like, okay, let's get someone that has the charisma that could play both the good and the bad side and kind of cross and dip their toes into both pools because this is kind of what you need for that pirate. There's a sexiness and curiosity built around the aura of pirates. That's why people have pirate jokes to this day. That's why people still dress up as pirates for Halloween. That's what you do because it's a mystique, it's an aura about that type of character. So why not get someone that can do that? So I think for Jude Law, I really was hoping that he was just a a lost Jedi, and he just still has that heart of gold, and some may say that he does, just based off of seeing that show, that end scene where he sees his ship just crashing down. It's like, yeah, that's kind of funny. Like he's laughing about it and smiling about it, the demise of his crew, and he's still okay. So, is he rooting for the kids? The fact that like, hey, I'm glad that those kids didn't get killed. Or is it more of like, I'm free? Like, what is your take on that? What did you think at the end when he was kind of snickering as he saw his ship going down?
I just think that he'd been beaten down so much that he just like couldn't win. Every time the guy has hope, it's crushed. Hope that he'd become a Jedi, hope that he would continue to find this, after he took to piracy, hope that he would be able to find the treasure or really score and lead people to a perceived success in that specific area. And every time he fails miserably, but he does it with flair.
Are you okay with that take of it to where it's not completely discernible if he's a good guy? Do you like that kind of gray area to where it's like he's not 100% dick?
Well, I mean, he is. He shows his true colors at the end. I think that he's just a lost soul, right? And I think that Star Wars has a good amount of people who are lost and who don't, I think that's the fun part about Star Wars is there's, very real human conditions in it. So,
I
yeah.
think he's a desperate guy. And
Mhm.
he's so desperate for a win that he will portray and be the bad guy. I really don't think he was going to kill anyone. He had every opportunity to kill every
He
single one
didn't
of them.
want to.
Yeah. I mean, would he have? Probably. But at the same time, like, there's a difference between, like, if that's the world you grow up in and you have no choice in your head as you're trying to justify things, like, I have no choice but to kill these people because I have
Hmm.
to do this. I've had a shitty string of luck my entire life. And so I can understand and respect that. I'm not saying I'm all for crime just based off of where you grew up, but at the
Hmm.
same time, I think there's a justification to where it's like, okay, well, besides that initial scene, and forgive me because I don't remember it to the best of accuracy, did he kill a bunch of people or was it his people that killed a bunch of people?
Wait, which scene?
The initial scene with the murder fest.
Oh, it was his people. It
Okay.
was the pirates in general. He didn't stop them from doing it, if you will.
Sure. But at the same time, in his head, maybe he's thinking, like, well, because I didn't kill these people, my team is doing it. I'm in the clear. My conscience is clean. So I'm not saying it's right. I'm just thinking, like, from the mind of a hypocrite or a messed up childhood and upbringing, like, that's totally justifiable for them. They're not killing people. It's the other guys that are doing it. So I like to think of him as being a little bit more towards that good guy edge or the anti-hero edge. I don't think he's a bad guy. I'll just go right out and say it. He does bad things. I don't think is a 100% evil character like, you see, or the way that Darth Vader is portrayed is 100% bad,
Yeah, but I think
But
that that's the good thing, right? That's the
yeah,
that's the positive part.
but uh, were you happy with the plot? Were you happy with how it was like, okay, we're gonna go from one adventure? Like I was almost thinking that, oh, fuck, are we gonna visit like 4 or 5 different planets and then just realize like, oh, not this one, kids. Let's go on to the next one. Like they're gonna quantum leap it.
I like that I like that they gave the reasons why, right? Like they dug into the hidden planetness, going to the other hidden planets and like really kind of discovering it and making it what it was, which is, like cult-like planets. Like I was okay with that, right? It was very Dharma initiative, if you will, right? There were the Dharma planets. So I liked that from a perspective. And I also enjoyed the twist at the end where the overseer was a droid. I'm like, oh, Wally, great. We're
Or
watching
Kevin.
Wally now.
I think it was Kevin from She-Hulk, so that's what it was. But
That's
you never
funny.
finished She-Hulk, did you? Okay, so
Uh-huh.
spoiler alert for you. I don't care if if you wanted to be surprised by this, but so She-Hulk ends up breaking the fourth wall, and she's like, "I need to fucking talk to whoever's in charge of making the show," and it's basically like it's Kevin the robot's named Kevin, an android named Kevin, and Kevin Feige is the kind of like the nod to it.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like the same thing. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's kind of clever. But She-Hulk did it first.
Yeah.
And probably The Simpsons did it first before that too. So
Well, I mean, so many. It's not a new trope, right?
yeah.
But I'm sure Star Trek did it at some point. Actually, Captain Marvel did it, and Jude Law tried to defend the all-knowing computer as opposed to not, right?
Loki. Oh, did it happen in Loki?
No, it happens all the time.
Yeah, this isn't original at all.
It
Fuck
happens
this
all the
show.
time. But it was the first one that had a full R2 unit spinning head. The most useless computer build ever. They needed, like, think about the amount of lubrication that that head unit needed on this giant turnstile to move around to what, it has to look out the fucking window? Like, all that
I
dust in
can
there, those gears were grinding, baby.
I can imagine the meetings for the construction of this. Like, we need more lubrication. That's what we need. We need this thing to be gigantic. We need to be cool looking and completely useless in a fight. That's what we need. With the galaxy far, far away, long, long time ago, and set
Uh-huh.
between after the end of Jedi, before Force Awakens. Is it feeling like Star Wars to you?
I mean, yeah. It's feeling in the right universe. The ships aren't all clean. There's it's dirty. The cool thing about it is you didn't really see stormtroopers. You saw X-wings, but there wasn't, Imperial remnants anywhere. It wasn't that. It was a different, faction of the Republic, if you will. So I dug that part of it, right? That they were able to give you not something with stormtroopers.
I think for me, and the hypocrisy is strong in this one. So like unfortunately we reviewed Rebel Moon and the sequel, but we talked about that where I thought like, yeah, this was pitched as a Star Wars movie, and I could totally see the parallels as to why it would be like a Star Wars movie, and
Mhm.
it kind of has a strike against it because of that. It felt like okay with a Star Wars with a whole bunch of slow motion. That's what Rebel Moon was, in my opinion. But this one didn't feel like it was a Star Wars adventure, with the exception of the mentioning of the Jedi and a lightsaber. Right? If you put blinders on and you take those things out of it, yep, he's got a laser sword and they've got telekinesis. It didn't feel like Star Wars, but I'm okay with it
Mhm.
because I feel like that's what Star Wars needs, is something that could be something completely different, but it just happens to be in this world. Very much like multiple different cities and suburbs across the United States. It's like, yeah, not all, it's a suburb, but this suburb's a little bit different than the other ones, and like the kids have different slang and terminology. It's like I'm okay with it. Like that's something that I appreciated in this. So did it feel like Star Wars for me? No. Did I want it to be Star Wars because of a Jedi? Yes. But it was more so just that adventure and the idea of like, okay, this Jedi is going to take these kids on like a little adventure. But since I was wrong on that stuff, I still enjoyed the journey of what they were doing. It got a little bit long in the tooth. There was a few episodes where I was like, really, did we need to stop at this place? Like the opposite of at Atten. I was just like, really? Like we had to go here? Like I guess it's
I
kind of
liked,
cool because you see like the whole apocalyptic look of things, but at the
but it
same time, it didn't serve a purpose.
added a layer to the why, right? To the whole. This isn't just a single one-off. It was a whole. It was a group of planets. It was a whole continuum, and they don't know that the other ones are hidden.
So let me ask you this. What was the purpose of, because it's a whole bunch of them hidden, and they didn't visit all of them. What was the purpose of even being able to mention that? Did you feel like it just enriched the story just because like, oh, there was other ones? Like you weren't like, what so what's the deal with the other planets out there? Like there's like a stack of them. So why didn't we get to see those?
Again, I felt very dharmaed by it. Like the fact that there was a bigger plan behind it. It's not just a one-off world. It's an Imperial Mint planet, essentially. All of them were Imperial Mint planets. And the cool part is, no, not Imperial, but Senate based, right?
Republic?
Yeah, Republic. They're all Republic Mint planets. And that just Like it was the way that they dedicated themselves to the cause of the Republic. They were there to mint, but they went with their families, you know, the initial founders or whatever. You know, I mean, how many generations had grown up on that planet thinking that that was the only way, but they all were like, nope, we're not leaving.
I'll be honest with you. Like, it Martha'd me. It Martha'd
No.
me pretty good. The fact that there were so many loose ends and untraveled roads that were there. I was like, well, what about this? Like, this is definitely going to play into the show a little bit later on in the episode. Like, nope, we're going to go somewhere completely different. I'm still having a good time, but at the same time, I'm just like, why? Start adding up all of those loose threads, and it's just like, where the
Mhm.
fuck did the sweater go? Like, how's this even a full sweater? Because like, there's so many fucking threads that are out there that you just don't even know what it's all about or why. If there's no significance to them, I totally get it. That's fine, but why mention it if there's no significance or building to the story? When you say there's it adds a layer, I think I can appreciate a layer if it circles back and has something to do with what we're trying to accomplish or why we're not accomplishing something. And this didn't really Martha me at the time when I was watching the original trilogy. It's almost like, you have the loose threads that, Lucas wrote or his writers wrote where it's like, yeah, there's let's just go to Tashi Station, pick up some power converters. I want to know what Tashi Station looks like. I want to know why he wanted some power converters. Like I just there was so many things that were mentioned. It's like Buckaroo Banzai. It's just a bunch of batshit crazy stuff that you never revisit. And it's like, yeah, why is that watermelon there? Like,
Yeah,
that's a long
but
story.
that's the thing. Like, you don't need that answer. That answer doesn't enrich the plot. It just gives you more details. Just
Gives you
accept.
gives you more details. Doesn't necessarily mean that's always a good thing
You don't need to
because
know shit about Taji Station or some fucking power converters. That
uh,
would not make A New Hope any better.
Bullseye Womp Rats. The fuck is a Womp Rat?
Who cares?
I mean, I did. I was like, why are there so many things? I don't know what the hell that stuff is. Like, I when I was a little kid, it didn't bother me. It was like, okay, cool. It would be something funny to quote. But at the same time, like as an adult, if I were watching now, I'd look at it with new eyes, and just be like, yeah. Probably could have just been like, yeah, we used to shoot animals, the size of that. Like, okay, fine, I'm,
But
I'm
that's
okay
what
with
it
that.
is. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You gotta accept that it's science fiction. It's not a documentary.
It doesn't have to be like for science fiction though. Not everything has to be a mystery and unknown. You know what I mean? Like it could be simplified a little bit. You can go wild on some of the very important plot points in my opinion, but at the same time, like you want to talk about certain things, just give the layman's term for it, and then give it a different name or something like that, or maybe even just call it out. Like, sorry, what was that again? Like, oh, that's an animal that we used to really just shoot at all the time because we were bored farm kids.
Yeah, we
Okay,
were just hillbillies
yeah,
shooting invasive
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
I mean, they do that in regular movies. Why not be able to do it in science fiction? Or at least in this particular standard. But yeah, what about you? Anything, Martha? You?
The only thing that Martha'd me was the real piratey wardrobe of the pirates. Why? They're space pirates. They're not fucking Pirates of the Caribbean. We don't need that.
You want to look the part, right? Like if that's the case, just call them smugglers then, because if you're going to call a pirate, they need to have some pirate garb. Even in a galaxy far, far away, a long, long time ago, you still have that as a consistent.
I guess. Again, it didn't ruin it for me. It didn't throw me. I was just like, why are these skeletons just stabby themselves everywhere?
Well, yeah, I don't know, but I'll tell you something I do know. I've got a question to ask you, Mark.
Oh,
When it comes to the skeleton crew, can you do this all day?
it's Star Wars. It wasn't bad. It's not going to be a go-to on the reg, right? It's not like a rewatch religiously like The Mandalorian. There are some portions of really good nostalgia in there. There's a lightsaber, there's a twist, there's some cool characters and aliens, but while I appreciate it, it's not on the rotation. So and I cannot do this all day, which is shocking for me
Mm,
due to the Star Wars love there. So I don't hate it. It's not a never again. It's just not a I'll turn this on anytime.
fair enough.
So with me being the connoisseur of the group, it then brings us to you, the non-Star Wars connoisseur, but the man who's got so many opinions on his universe building and what he needs. Dan, same question to you. Skeleton Crew, can you do this all day? Are you joining up?
Star Wars, I've been pretty sour on since the sequel trilogy came out. And I loved Star Wars as a kid. And there's been a few high points. There's been a lot of low points, unfortunately. This was a show that I was just super curious about. And I was curious as I was continuing to watch it. There's a lot of things that Marthaed me about it. But at the same time, I think it's, I was irritated by it, but at the same time, I was turning a blind eye because I was just trying to focus on, like, okay, so I know that Star Wars does this like habitually. There's always some type of loose thread or reference that's made that, like, I'm just not going to get because either I don't know the lore, haven't read the books, or maybe it's just because nothing's ever been really explained. And you kind of expect that from Star Wars. I still try to go in it with a little bit of realism to try and be like, okay, well, I'll be the devil's advocate. As much as I love that original trilogy and I turn a blind eye to things, like, well, why don't I watch this new one and turn a blind eye to some of it, but still make sure that I'm aware that, like, yeah, here's some plot holes or here's some things that I don't necessarily like, or things that irk me. I think the charm of the kids is irrefutable. This is something that we haven't seen in Star Wars. And could this be a completely different show? Sure. Could it work? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see it so many different iterations of child adventures with some real adult shit that happens. And with this show, I think you have, from a Star Wars perspective, the things that, in my opinion, that will make a Star Wars property worth it and on my clipboard of, like, yes, this passes the test. You have droids, great. You've got some really interesting aliens and cute aliens. Okay, check the box there. You've got kids in the sense that,
Cute
like,
aliens.
you have these kids that are just primarily the main cast of everything, and you have, like, someone to be like a mentor, or at least a fake mentor, if you will, for them. And as I was watching it, I was just like, yeah, this doesn't feel like Star Wars to me, but I'm digging it. I'm cool with that because I'm kind of out on Star Wars anyways. There's only been a few different properties that have made me super curious, and they ended up letting me down anyways. So, like, the Acolyte with Chimere totally made me be interested back in Star Wars again, just because of him. This made me interested in Star Wars because, like, oh, yeah, we don't just have to have, like, Jedi and Sith. There could be some other stuff. Pirates, kids. So yeah, I'm gonna say I can do this all day. I enjoyed it. I had a fun time. There were things that a lot of things that Marthaed me, but the fact that I was on the edge of my airplane seat and just kind of, like, probably talking to myself, like, holy shit, he's a Jedi. He's got it. He survived Order 60. It's got to be. I was so into it at that point, and my curiosity was just, like, burning, that, like, yeah, I was invested for the entire show. Whereas in hindsight, could I probably narrow it down and not go to a few of those planets? 100% sure. But yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I can do this all day.
I love it. I love it. And I'm not surprised. The hypocrisy is strong with this podcast, and we all have felt different ways and judged differently. So love it.
I want to throw a quick call out and shout out to some of the other roles that were in this that we didn't get a chance to talk about. But you got Steve Urkel, Jaleel White was in there, which is, like, I was like, is that Steve Urkel? Like, holy shit. And then Nick Frost is SM-33. Didn't even realize that that was him. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, there's quite a few other people in there. If you remember from Avengers and Marvel ties, Carrie Condon, who was Tony Stark's AI after Jarvis, she was Fern's mom. So that was kind of cool. It was just really cool to see some of that stuff. And then, of
Oh,
course, for any Marvel animation voiceover work, if you're familiar with the Hulk, Fred Tatasciore was also in this. So cool, very cool to see a lot of those. He was Brutus, the other captain. So, but yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. It's pretty cool. Good
it is
stuff.
pretty cool. And I had the same reaction. I'm like, and I cannot believe we didn't touch on this. I was like, Is that Urkel?
Did he do that? Like, does
Did
that?
he crash that ship?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
got to
it
get
was
Reginald Vell Johnson needs to get on to Star Wars ASTAT, right? Like
uh,
ASAP. I don't know why I said ASTAT, but ASAP. Yeah, I think we got some nice nostalgia there too. So it's a
yeah,
nice little package that everything was.
it was a thing. It was a
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, no, the Urkel in it. And more power to Jaleel White. Keep trying to get yourself some jobs, but man, you gotta cover that face because it's just so evident. That is somebody that cannot be separate. Like, I'm sorry that you can't be separated from that character, but man, like, everybody knows, buddy.
Wouldn't it
Everybody
be funny,
knows.
like years from now, like you're watching something and someone just says, "Is that Stefan Urkel?" Like they don't even call him
Is
Steve
that
Urkel. They're just
Stefan?
Stefan Urkel. That's him, right? They only saw like somewhere like some random streaming service played only the Stefan Urkel Family Matters episodes, and that's
Oh
what they
god.
watched. And it's like, yeah, that's him.
You know what they should do? Since Will Smith is in all this heat and deep fake is so good, they should just redo Hitch, but with Jaleel White
That's Stefan
as
Urkel.
Stefan Urkel the whole movie. Tell me that movie is not a million times better.
I mean,
Stefan Urkel.
perhaps, yeah. But, anyways, that wraps it up for another episode of I Can Do This All Day. I am Dan, the Part-Time Avenger. That's Mark, the Resident Jedi.
Closing out before we get on more tangents, but you know what gets us on great tangents? Your comments on the socials. Like and subscribe if you liked our content on whatever platform you're listening on, and hit us up at I Can Do This All Day podcast at whatever a social media service. Let us know if you agree that Stefan Urkel did not have an impact whatsoever on this show, and what other movies you'd like to see Jaleel White replace the main character in.
This is the way.
Ooh. Did you do that?